everybody. Welcome to the latest installment of MSP Business School. We're glad you can join us today. And today's going to be one of those roundtables for us, gentlemen. So before we kick that off, to remind everybody, once again, I'm Brian Doyle.
Tim McNeil.
And I'm Roberto.
Roberto.
There we go. All right.
From here on out, I'm going to call you Dub, double B, baby.
That's right.
After that story you shared with us a couple of weeks ago, I think we got to get you some nicknames. But we've been, kind of out talking to a lot of people out in the marketplace, and, everybody knows AI is a big buzzword. And we're not here just to kind of go in to another conversation about AI and, cool. But more, Robb has been doing a lot of work at really analyzing and learning AI and what its capabilities are, and, in full transparency, and not to be a pitch, but because it's something that's getting implemented into sales maturity. And in order to do it right and do it in a way that's going to work for that platform, Robb took the baton and said, I'm going to be the AI guy, and I'm going to go in deep and narrow on this, or deep and wide, maybe. I don't know.
Very narrow.
Throw it off a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But he's really looked at this, and of course he's also looking at it from the angle of the MSP, right?
Always.
So the other part is this discussion is not going to be about generalized AI usage in the big picture. We're really going to get into what are some of the ways that MSPs can leverage AI, both in products that exist out in the marketplace today, but more importantly, if you just want to start touching upon it and go in there, really jumping into the AI, I don't know, call it the ocean with 2 feet, right? So we'll go from there. So, maybe Robb, start out first. If I'm somebody new who really hasn't had a lot of exposure to AI, hasn't played with it much, where's a good place for me maybe to start? Or what should I be considering as I'm getting started?
It's a great, well, first off, to get started, an easy thing to do out there is just go to Chat GPT. There's a free model. You can go in there and start playing around with it and immediately start getting value. And when I say value, if you use it for rough draft and for helping you write and helping you understand topics or build topics, it can save you 80 to 90% of your time, as you're trying to create content. It won't finish the content for you. You always got to have eyes on target and make it your own. But to get you to a point where it can, help you build your content, any of your marketing, any of that kind of stuff, it's a really great resource. To include helping you understand other people's material. That's coding, that's anything. It is a great interpreter and explainer. And it will literally tell you like a 5th grader. And that's what I always, I have it ask and explain things to me over and over and over. Explain it to me like a 5th grader. And I can learn a topic super fast with it.
And I think to that point, I mean, what dealing with the prompts and kind of making it your own and making it spit out what you're looking for, what goes into that? Like, how does that work?
Here's the reason why some people get fed up with it, and it's the reason that ChatGPT has lost users for the last 3 months in a row. People go in, they try and type in something in a natural language way, and then they don't get what they're looking for, so then they try it again, and then they iterate it over and over, and finally they just get fed up and they say, you know what, I'm just going to go do this myself. It's easier and faster. But the reason that some people are really good at it and others are not is because the people who have learned that there is actually a formula when you're typing in a prompt have a huge advantage, and it's called zero prompting, right? You go in there, you type something, and you immediately get the response that you're looking for. You only had like 0 attempts, just that 1 attempt. And the first thing that you have to understand is the number one thing when you're typing in a prompt is you have to give it the task. And the task is, you use an action verb to start it. Build me, create me. There's an action verb to start it. So the task is the number one thing. Then you have to give it context. So in this prompt, you give it the task, which is, I want you to do this. And then you give it the context. And that's kind of like, if you look at a play, it's like the audience, and it's the version of everything of how you want it to do it and how you want the output to come. And the third thing is either the tone you have to give or an example that you have to give. If you can give those 3 things, you'll immediately get what you're looking for. There's other things you can do as well, but those are the 3 main pieces that change everything. It's a game changer for you.
So Rob, can you take those three things and kind of give us an example of a well-written prompt verbally here for the show?
Yeah, sure. So, Brian, or like if you were the prompt, I would say, Brian, give me a marketing email for MSPs. That's your task. I want a marketing email for MSPs. And then the context would be, this is going to be based on my 3 value propositions of fun, exciting, and great savings. And so that's the context of what you're trying to do. And then the last piece of it, you could either give it an example of an email that you've seen successful, or you can say, I want this to be in the tone of a marketing professional. And then it'll give you the information that you're looking for. So tell it the task, build me. Then you tell it like how you want it to do that task. I want it to be with my value propositions of this, this, and this. And then you can either give it an example or you give it the tone, the style that you want. And those 3 things will be 95% of the way there.
And I think you've really hit upon why some people get frustrated with it, because a lot of them think it's as simple as saying, I want to write a marketing email to MSPs, go.
Yes.
And you're not going to get what you look like. You've got to give the tool a little bit more. So but that's a great 3-step approach right there, because I think it really kind of boils the ocean onto what you got to move forward with.
It's like this. The way that I kind of started figuring it out was I talked to it like it's a virtual assistant. So like, so if I'm trying to explain to somebody, and we have virtual assistants overseas that help us with tasks, and you have to be explicit, right? If you make assumptions, then it doesn't come back right. Then you have to ask them again. So if you start off telling them exactly what you're looking for, and here's an example of what I'm looking for, you get everything back perfectly. And that's how you do it.
That's actually a great. That's the first time I've heard you say it like that. That's a great analogy. If for anybody who uses VAs out there, you have to be very literal, right? You've got to be very detailed, very literal. And if you're working with a VA and you do it correctly, they can be a huge asset to you. And
there's a lot of good parallels there,
This
Tim,
is no
too.
different.
There's a lot of good parallels too, because we've talked about VAs in the past, and usually when you fail with a VA, it's because you're not building a process for them to interpret and execute on. And it sounds like we're talking really the same kind of thing here, which with the AI model, large language models.
Yep, the exact same way.
So I know So I know we've you talk about Chat GPT and how they're losing users for the first time, right? And they came on the scene, probably not first, but they were probably the biggest, right? What I know the answer to this, but I'll tee it up for you. What are some of the negatives about a Chat GPT or like system?
Yeah. So the number one problem. Okay. So here's the great thing about Chat GPT. It's a game changer. To me, large language models is bigger than the discovery of fire. It's on that order of magnitude. It's that big, and it's going to double the size of the industry, I think, every 6 months. It's huge. And every time you think something's amazing, something amazing comes out the next week. It's that big. But the developers are starting to look at it and understand what's going on. ChatGPT is fantastic if you just want to create things and look out there for things. But if you put information in, they own it. If you put in code, they own it. If you put in your unique IP from your company, they own it. So all the major organizations do not use it. Right. So then what happened was about a month and a half ago, ChatGPT came out with an enterprise model and they said, we won't use your stuff. Please come back. Right. And, they charge people more for that model. But, anything you put into ChatGPT gets used in their system and they will use it. You do have the option to say, hey, don't use my stuff, but you got to fill out a long form and you have to basically beg them not to use your stuff. And by that time, it doesn't matter. So what everybody's doing now is to get out of that ChatGPT owns my stuff is they're starting to use privatized containers. They're going out, they're talking to developers and getting all these privatized containers and building their own knowledge base. That's what we did. ChatGPT owns none of our stuff. We built our own model. So that way, people can feel safe. But that's the reason why ChatGPT is having some issues right now.
And Brian, like you were saying before, not trying to make it a sales pitch, but I do think with what you've created with Selma and how it's going to be integrated with sales maturity, I mean, it's a huge advantage, right? Not only
Yeah.
not only are all of our documents over the last 10 to 15 years in there, but insert new MSP, they can put in their USP or their unique selling proposition into it and build documents both from our knowledge base and their knowledge base. So like
Yeah.
that's kind of a game changer.
That's why the developers have kind of moved away from Chat GPT and why they're seeing such declines over the last 3 months.
Do you think another contributor to the decline is the fact that developers are getting more enriched in building into applications? You know, I've seen some of the critical apps that I use on the day-to-day. And when I say critical, just my regulars, right? So Grammarly now has an AI. Most of the CRMs have an AI component. You know, my email marketing engine has an AI component. So, you know, as developers continue to integrate AI into their tools, is that part of the reason that you might be seeing a downshift also in Chat GPT? Because people aren't using the native tool, they're getting their AI fixed through the other tools they use.
So here's the thing that people should understand when they're getting a developer to build their stuff. You got to make sure that your foundational model is built on one of the privatized models. If your developer is just API linking straight into Chat GPT, you're back in the same boat, right? Stuck with Chat GPT. So you got to make sure that the developer is building your own system in your own container using Llama 2, you know, with the big Facebook one. Or one of the other ones. There's models out there for you to embed and fine tune that'll become yours that you don't have to share with anybody.
So, you know, when you're building a privatized model, this is a question I had in that. Are you inheriting the information from a Chat GPT first and then building on top of it? And that's where the privatization comes from? Or because I would assume it would take quite a while to build your own large language model if you do not have a large language database of files and other things you can put into it.
So that's a really good question. So the short answer is you start off with one of the foundational models from a Chat GPT or a Llama 2, right? They spent hours and hours and, you know, weeks and weeks and weeks and months building their model. But then you take that snapshot, that seed, and you bring it into your own system. And then you start fine tuning and embedding everything into it. So you start off with a seed, but then you change it over to your stuff.
And is there still the ability to bring in other public data into a privatized container, Rob? Do you know that answer?
Well, explain what you mean there.
So let's say I've got a data feed that's going to give me particular statistics that I need to know for my industry, right? And I want to integrate that feed into my large language model because it will absolutely be supporting information that I need, you know, to continue to grow out.
Yeah.
Do those abilities or do those possibilities exist yet? Or
oh yeah,
is that?
Oh yeah, 100%. And here's where you start getting into the ethical pieces, right? So you can 100% right now at our level bring in information, whether you're doing it through like SERP type of stuff or just you see documents that you want, you embedded them into your vector store and you've got them, you own them. And that's, you know, everybody can do that. We do that, right, at our level. But here's where it starts to get a little tricky, right? So ChatGPT's bot will blow through any no index. So for you web developers out there, you know that no index is where you tell Google not to go into these pages. GPT doesn't care, blows right past them. It only stops if it sees the word copyright or if it sees the word paywall. You know, those are the only times it stops, but it'll rip off everything past no index. And that's where they're getting themselves in trouble financially with all these lawsuits. Number one. Number two, and this is where you have to have somebody who's ethical and moral. I can go into YouTube right now and scrape anything that I want and put it into my database and claim it's mine. That's scary, right?
Yeah.
It's illegal, in my opinion, but it's also scary. Like, so, you know, think of one of those really famous marketing people like Gary V, right? Or, you know, anybody out there that has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of videos. I can go out there programmatically, rip off all their transcripts, throw them into a system and call them mine. And that's where the ethical and that's where the boundaries have to come in a little bit out there.
Well, that leads to a conversation that we were having earlier in the week is just as far as regulations. And I'm personally of the opinion that you can't regulate this. It's just because we regulate it doesn't mean other countries around the world are going to, and that's another can of worms, right? So, I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, the first thing is the web developers have to quickly catch up on their knowledge and understand that you have to go in there and say not only no index, but no disabled ChatGPT bot, right? And that stops a lot of the problems. But I think one of the things that people are going to start realizing really quick is there's going to be self-governing rules that come out there. YouTube's going to stop that transcription service that they have. They have to, right? There's going to have to be something that's going to be done for things like that. I don't think that government can come in now. I think it's too late. The genie's out of the bottle. And I agree with you that if we put too many guardrails up, other countries are just going to blow past us in development, right? And then they're going to be the experts and we're going to be chasing them. So I don't know what the answer is. I got to have a lot smarter people in a room than me try and figure that out. But
I think the other challenge is anytime you put in regulation, you got to have policing too. And how do how do you effectively police something that theoretically 370 million Americans can use independently? It becomes a lot more difficult.
Well, not only that, I mean, you see some of now there's AI videos, and if it's a good one, show me the difference between the real one and the fake one. I mean, it's damn near impossible. So how does a regulator even know if it gets to that point? Like and obviously there will be ways to know, but face value.
No, that's a whole other Pandora's box we could do another entire episode on, right? Because the deep fake has gotten much deeper, right, as a result of this. When you look at it, I was listening to a podcast and they were talking for a long time about how if they submitted their language with about 30 minutes worth of conversation to this particular firm, it was going to generate or give the ability to transcribe everything they do in 14 different languages with dialect and motion. And, when you think about that, it's like, well, that's amazing on one hand. Great. We're global now and we can talk to a whole new set of communities. But then there's the scary part about it.
Scary as hell.
You've got my language and now you can pretty much have me say anything you want.
Yeah. So, I've looked into those things. I've done a lot of research. The main one out there, there's two main ones. One is called Descript, and you can do 30 minutes into it. They actually say you can do 10 minutes into it, but you can tell. Like I've done my voice. So when I did my video a couple days ago, I did it through there. You have to do about 10 hours of content yourself to make it really sound good. And when I was listening to myself, I was like, wow, that is really, really close. Unless somebody's listening, they're not going to know. And then the other one is D-ID, and that's the consumer deepfake site. So like, I don't know if you guys saw the video that I did a couple days ago where I was introducing NaviBot. NaviBot was just an image, but because of what they can do, they can make her blink, they can make her mouth move to the script that I gave her, and she has her own script that she read during the interview that I did with her. It's getting there. It's getting there where you can. The good part is an owner can go in, create 10 hours worth of information, and then build their own podcast, right? To where they can have interactive conversations with people and not have to actually be on camera where they're intimidated by it. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff coming out for sure.
Amazing. Well, we're getting near the end of our time. And I think, we've kind of discussed a little bit about regulation. We've discussed about where to get started. We've talked about data security and safety, but what's the future bring, Rob? What's coming? What do you see for AI down the road without getting into the robots will run the universe, right? But what are we talking about?
So here's what I see people working on right now. So first off, the efficiencies for your knowledge base. Getting your knowledge base into your rep's hands, whether it's a tech person, a billing person, or a salesperson or marketing person, getting them the information they need in a split second is going to be critical. Just doing it in a natural language way. Hey, our client is having an issue with this, and then being able to triage that issue programmatically with a natural language is going to be super fast, and it's going to be able to pull up all your documents in a natural way. That's here, right? And it's being used. One of the things that I see coming down the pipe and this is the downside, is the ability for AI to do prospecting calls. That's coming. It's already here. It's
Okay.
not good, right? But it's here. And within the next 12 months, these large phone bank people are going to be using AI to do prospecting calls. It's kind of weird. Like how it just seems weird to me. I've tested a couple of them out to see where they're at. We would never, ever recommend that. Just never, ever, ever. But there's going to be banks out there that do that. Big telemarketing centers doing that. And then being able to programmatically give your unique value proposition into a system and then have it build out all your marketing materials and shoot out all those marketing materials and into a rough draft form to where you can just look at it. That's coming down the pipe super quick too. So I think customer sentiment, I think marketing efficiencies, anything that is below strategy level will be AI within the next 2 years.
Well, I would say just one thing that we've talked about internally here a fair amount is training specifically. Not that I'm in the same ballpark with Rob as far as I don't think I don't see a scenario in which we would ever recommend using AI from an MSP side to try and get prospects.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you're trying to train a salesperson, there's going to be a place for that.
Yeah.
There just will be. You're going to be able to, in the not too distant future, a salesperson will be able to call up an AI bot, have a full conversation with them, whether it's feature, transition, benefit, or whatever that looks like, and get objections back. You'll be able to grade how that person does based on that call all through AI.
Yeah.
That's not nothing. That's pretty amazing, actually.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we've kind of hit our time, but Rob, great stuff today. I mean, this was good to really learn, not just about AI as a tool, but kind of the sentiment around AI and exactly what the impact can be, both to the community and, the MSP community, but really all of us in our independent lives as well. So good stuff.
Yeah, glad you liked it, fellas.
All right. Tim, you want to take us home or you want me to do it?
I mean, I can give it a go. Probably not as good as Rob, but here we are.
But we'll give him the day off today.
Thank you, fellas.
Yeah. We didn't, in fairness, we didn't tell him beforehand that we nominated him when he wasn't the last one. So I guess it's only fair. But anyways, you can get this MSP Business School along with any other podcast that we create on any channel where you can get your podcast, to include YouTube. Especially if you're on YouTube, make sure to like and love those posts. All right. So we appreciate everybody that listens, and until the next one.
Take care, guys. Thanks again, Rob.
Take care, fellas.
All right, have a good one.